A few days ago, I did a video about the Jamaican influence in hip hop or the lack thereof, and I discussed issues concerning Herc and his sister Cindy. And Cindy said some things in that particular presentation that I want to touch on again and dive a little deeper. Now, the thing that I love so great about delineation is that black Americans are more conscious and on guard than ever before about cultural thievery and cultural appropriation. For decades, the powers that be have suggested that hip hop comes from Jamaica. The more we look into that claim, the more we realize that that narrative is a lie. In spite of the fact that Jamaican origin story of hip hop has been widely debunked, there are people who are consistently engaged in spreading this myth. Cindy Campbell is such a person. She, as well as Herc, have a clear financial interest in spreading these lies. She has even been crowned the queen of hip hop. That's insane. Let's revisit what she said in the video that I presented a few days ago. And we're going to expose in greater detail the lies that she's spewing.
Right? Now, could you have imagined at that block party in the Bronx, Sedgwick Avenue, could you have imagined that what you were putting in motion would result in something as gigantic as this? Could you, in your wildest imagination, have imagined that?
But I knew it was going to turn into something, but you're right. I could not imagine how gigantic it was going to turn out to be. And that's a blessing, you know, that's a blessing. And it's guidance to get us to this point. You know, it's been a journey. And the journey took us here. And we're here to be able to receive it and share it with the world. And so I could not have imagined how it would have been, but I'm thankful that it turned out the way it did. And it's a culture for us, you know, it's a culture for we as a people to be proud of, to say we are part of that extension. And they can't take it away from us now at this point. Nobody can claim it.
You can't take that away from me.
Now, we can claim it, you know. Jamaica can claim it.
Jamaica,
you know,
that's the important part of it. No, I mean, the fact is we still have to concede it was created in America by Jamaicans, but the fact is we must celebrate the Jamaican roots of it. This thing, exactly. as Herc reminds me, and you always remind me, that you people were influenced by what you grew up and saw in Jamaica before you left for the United States. And what you did was you transplanted what you had experienced from Franklin Town and all the other places where you lived in Jamaica. And that is what resulted in this phenomenal form that we call hip hop.
Yes. We took all that influence, the toasting, you know, the sound system, the way you give the party. You know, when you give party in Jamaica, you have to have food.
Food and drinks, yes.
Food. You have to. So, you know, we did that. You know, we made sure, you know, that happened. As far as, you know, you have to give out your little invitation and invite people. We did all of that.
You took all of these customs from Jamaica and you customized them for the United States, and the rest is history.
Now, if you listen to Cindy, you would actually believe that somehow black Americans didn't know anything about giving parties. And it was only because of these Jamaicans that came to America, they showed us how to give parties. Now, this is from 1967 in New York, matter of fact, in Manhattan. Clearly, we've been partying all our lives, and we know just how to give a party. Let me show you the history of our people and rent parties.
House rent parties originated in Harlem during the 1920s and played a major role in the development of stride-style piano. A rent party was exactly what it sounds like, a social occasion where tenants hired musicians and charged the door admission to pay their rent. In his 1938 narrative, Harlem Rent Parties, Frank Bird wrote, like the Charleston and Black Bottom, it became an overnight rage. Here at last was a partial solution to the problem of excessive rents and dreadfully subnormal incomes. There was a lot of competition to get people to come to your rent party. There might be as many as 10 to 12 happening in the same block on a given Saturday night. The people throwing the party had to advertise by printing business card-sized invitations with catchy slogans. A party given by Rose on 133rd Street, Apartment 5 said, "You can wake up the devil, raise all the hell, no one will be there to go home and tell." The cover charge was usually a quarter plus and an extra 10 cents for food and another 10 cents if you wanted a cup for drinks.
I want you guys to check this out. This is an invite from 1956. Matter of fact, October 20, 1956. We always had a flair for rhyming and jive talk. One might even say it's the precursor to rapping, right? So here we go. The lights are low, the music is fine. Come on up and cop a tough grind at Elvira, Sylvia, and Barbara. We always been giving parties.
They used to have rent parties. This was in the late 30s, during the 30s, and it carried on during the 40s and then the early 50s. It even went into the 60s, where they would have rent parties. They'd be all over the community. People would pay to get into the party, and the sponsor would pay their rent with the fees that they collected. But most of the revenue came from the food that they sold at these rent parties. They'd be all over town. You could run out of nighttime before you ran out of parties to attend. There would be so many of them, and they even had what they call waistline parties. Whatever your waistline was, they measure you at the door, and that would be your admission, and that was all about fun, dancing and etc.
For those of you who don't know who David Mancuso is, he's the owner of the Loft. He's pictured here along with Cindy Campbell. He's known for pioneering the underground dance party scene with his invitation-only parties that began in 1970. His parties fostered an inclusive communal atmosphere that transcended race and class. Now, why would he be pictured with Cindy Campbell? Because I'm arguing that both were influenced by Black American culture. With respect to Cindy, like Herc, they were African Americanized. So while Cindy is saying it comes from Jamaica, she knows better. But let's talk about Mancuso. He has a very interesting history regarding how the Loft got started. Check this out.
The way of the socializing that David really liked was the rent party scene that dates back to the Harlem Renaissance. And that was African Americans had moved from the rural South to the industrial North in search of jobs in manufacturing, in industry. And they were living in Harlem, and they had absentee landlords who were charging too much rent. They couldn't pay the rent, so it started to invite people over to their homes for a party. And the friends would donate some money at the door, and that money would go towards paying the rent. So there's poverty partying. And that culture carried on through to the point when David arrived in New York in 1962. And his favorite form of socializing was in these rent parties. They were primarily black parties, but it wasn't exclusive. David just loved the intimacy. You could form a community. Because it was in someone's home, you could relax. No one was ripping you off. So the Loft, the party that he started in 1970, different forms of partying before then in his Loft. He moved into his Loft in 1965. Then he started to have like more dance-oriented parties, and he got a DJ from this kind of bar restaurant with a bit of a discotheque, if you like, called Max's Kansas City. He teamed up with the DJ from there and another guy, and they ran a party called Coalition in David's Loft. But it never quite worked. When it was in February 1970, David brought all these things together. The rent party with a private invite. He developed his beautiful stereo sound system.
The best thing to come out of all of this revisionist history stuff is that it forces us to dig deeper into our history and correct the lies from the other side. For so many years, Black Americans didn't push back on these lies because we honestly believed in the good of these people. Now we realize that some of them are engaging in a form of erasure of Black American creation and culture, and we're not having it. The gentleman that I featured talking about rent parties said that they've been going on well into the 60s, so it's likely that Cindy was introduced to that concept by her Black American friends. I doubt very seriously that that ideal came from Jamaica. Now, with respect to our Puerto Rican nationalist friend, he tried to suggest that David Mancuso laid the foundation for DJ culture in hip-hop. His content seems to suggest that anybody but Black American DJs should get credit for laying down the foundation for hip-hop. Lo and behold, David Mancuso was also influenced by Black American culture. Now I realize there are people out there who think I hate Jamaican people and other Caribbean people. That is far from the truth. But if you start lying, I'm going to call you out. So my prayers and best wishes go out to the people of Jamaica in regards to the devastation that island has suffered as a result of Hurricane Melissa. Peace.